Sparta, a name that hits like a punch, a name that people often shout with excitement, imagining brave warriors, powerful kings, and epic battles. Movies show Spartans as fearless heroes who laugh in the face of danger. Games show them as superhuman fighters who never back down. History books praise their courage and discipline. But behind all that glory is a darker truth. The real Sparta was not a shining city of heroes. It was a place built on fear, pain, control, and sacrifice. A place where people's lives were shaped by the state, not their own choices. A place where becoming strong meant losing your childhood, and sometimes losing your humanity. Today, you're going to hear the side of Sparta that most people never talk about. The side hidden behind the shields. The side buried under the legends. This is the dark side of Sparta. Let's begin. Sparta wasn't like other Greek cities. Most cities had markets filled with color, music, food, and art. Athens had philosophers, plays, and inventions. Corinth had trade, wealth, and luxury. But Sparta was different. Very different. Sparta didn't want happy citizens. It wanted tough ones. It wanted warriors who could fight until the last breath. And to get that, the Spartans created a society where everything, and I mean everything, was built around war. Family life, controlled. Education, controlled. Food, controlled. Marriage, controlled. Even what you could own, controlled. Nothing belonged to you, not even your life. And this harsh world started the moment a Spartan child was born. When a baby arrived, it wasn't the parents who decided if it should live. Instead, the newborn was brought to a group of old Spartan leaders who inspected it like livestock. They checked the baby's body, its strength, its health. If the baby looked weak, if it had a disability, if anything seemed wrong, it was taken to a small hillside outside the city and left there, left to die. Spartans believed weakness was dangerous. They believed that raising weak children would make the whole society weaker, so they erased weakness from the very start. This wasn't rare. This wasn't shocking to them. This was normal Spartan life. Imagine that. Your first moments in the world are judged by strangers, and your parents can only watch, powerless. If a baby survived and was accepted by the state, life didn't get much easier. In fact, the darkness was just beginning. Spartan boys stayed with their mothers until they were 7. After that, the state took them away. The boys entered the Agoge, the Spartan training system that shaped them into warriors. But training is too soft a word. The Agoge was more like a survival program mixed with non-stop punishment. Everything in the Agoge pushed boys to their breaking point. They were starved. Not a little, a lot. Hunger was part of daily life. The adults told them, find food, do whatever it takes. But here's the twisted part. If a boy was caught stealing food, he was beaten. Not for stealing, but for being caught. The lesson was simple. Survive no matter what. Be smart. Be silent. Be ruthless. They were also beaten often. For mistakes. For speaking without permission. For showing fear. For showing emotion. Spartans believed pain was a tool. Pain made you stronger. Pain made you hard. Pain made you ready for war. There's a famous story of a Spartan boy who stole a fox and hid it under his cloak. When the adults approached, he was so scared of getting caught that he let the fox bite into his stomach, tearing his flesh. He didn't make a sound. He stood there silently until he died. That was considered a sign of strength. To most of the world, it was horrifying. But to Sparta, it was a lesson in endurance. Even friendships in the Agoge were not normal. Boys bonded through suffering. through shared beatings, through cold nights, through hunger. Their emotions were slowly removed, replaced with loyalty to the state. Nothing was more important than the group. Nothing was more important than obedience. Nothing was more important than preparing for war. By the time a Spartan boy became a man, he wasn't just strong, he was unbreakable, but he also learned something else, that softness had no place in Sparta. That kindness was weakness, that fear made you a target, and that your life only had value if you could fight. But the darkness didn't stop with the boys. It stretched across all of Spartan society. Let's talk about the helots. If Spartans were the warriors, the helots were the workers, the people who grew the food, harvested crops, and made everyday life possible. They were not exactly slaves, but they had no freedom. They belonged to the land and to the Spartan state. What made their lives so dark was not just the work, it was the fear, constant fear, because the helots outnumbered the Spartans by a huge amount. Some historians say 7 helots for every 1 Spartan citizen. That meant if they ever rebelled, they could take over the entire city. So the Spartans created a system of control that was terrifying. Every year, the Spartan government declared war on the helots, a real war, by law. This allowed Spartans to kill helots without punishment, and young warriors-to-be were sent out at night to hunt them, to kill anyone who looked too strong, too confident, or too rebellious. This wasn't war. This was a nightmare. Imagine living your whole life knowing that at night, armed warriors might come for you, and there was nothing you could do. Imagine hearing footsteps in the dark and wondering if it was your last moment. This wasn't just control. It was psychological warfare. It kept the helots afraid, silent, and obedient. But fear didn't just control the helots, it controlled the Spartans too. Spartan men were trained to be fearless in battle, but they lived under rules that were strict and unforgiving. A Spartan was not allowed to live at home with his family until he was 30. Even after that, he had to eat most meals in military dining halls with his group. Leaving that dining hall or refusing the food could get him punished. And the food wasn't good. The most famous dish was black broth, a mix of pig blood, vinegar, and salt. Outsiders hated it. One man from another Greek city tried it and said, "Now I know why Spartans are so ready to die." Even love and marriage were strange in Sparta. On a couple's wedding night, the bride's head was shaved and she wore men's clothes. The husband visited her in secret, almost like sneaking around. Why? Because Spartans believed love made men weak. They didn't want warriors who fought for their families. They wanted warriors who fought only for the state. If a couple could not have strong children quickly enough, the government could force them to solve the problem, even if it meant letting another man father the child. Feelings didn't matter. Romance didn't matter. Only producing more warriors mattered. Spartan men were expected to show no fear, no pain, no doubt. They were expected to die before running away. A Spartan who fled from battle lost everything: his honor, his status, his friends, his home. He would live the rest of his life as a joke, an outcast, a shadow. To Spartans, shame was worse than death. But here's the twist, the darkest twist of all. Sparta's greatest strength became the reason for its downfall. Because when a society destroys weak babies, limits who can become a citizen, forces strict rules on marriage, and focuses only on war, the population begins to shrink. Slowly, the number of true Spartan citizens dropped. Fewer children, fewer warriors, fewer families, fewer people to keep the system alive. And over time, Sparta became weaker. When other Greek cities rose up against Sparta, especially Thebes, the Spartans could not keep up. Their legendary army, once unstoppable, fell. Their strict rules, once their source of strength, became chains around their neck. Sparta faded, not with a dramatic explosion, but with a slow decline. A long, quiet collapse caused by their own unforgiving system. Their harshness made them strong. Their harshness also destroyed them. Today, people talk about the bravery of the 300 at Thermopylae. They talk about the discipline and power of the Spartan warriors. But the truth behind all that strength is much darker. Sparta was built on suffering, built on fear, built on control, built on broken families, lost childhoods, and lives shaped by the state. The dark side of Sparta isn't just a story, it's a warning that strength without compassion becomes cruelty, that discipline without freedom becomes prison, that power built on fear eventually collapses, and that even the strongest warriors cannot escape the shadows of the world that created them. This was the dark side of Sparta.